By the way, just for the record, just one of those things. I don't really know how you would submit that you are wrong. I don't really know how that would go. I know that you're wrong. So like how you would submit that, as well, sort that doesn't make any sense. That you would be, that you would be wrong, and then that wrongness override, what is, particularly whenever that's what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know how that would work out. So that's kind of a waste. It's kind of a waste for you. For you, it's kind of a waste. But I can kind of keep it there as like a buffer. You know what I mean? Like a filter. Kind of to keep it the fuck away from me. That's wisdom anyway. That's wisdom. To not be in pursuit of that what's wrong. For the sake of evil, for instance. There's that one. There's that one. So that's a major difference. That we can be sure of, because I mean we have everything over here, infinity and whatever else. So I really wouldn't prelude myself. I wouldn't see myself there, in the wrong, unwise, evil portion of things. I wouldn't aim for that. I wouldn't strive to be a part of that. I wouldn't identify with that. I wouldn't see myself as that. Some sort of incompletion. How could you even do that? How could you see yourself out as an incompletion? And then in some what veil resubmit that you are incomplete? That's not a real submission. It's kind of like taking a shit on the sidewalk. You can. Did it work out? Could it have worked out still somewhere else? It's kind of a null point. Sure, shit is shit, and that's a sidewalk, but nothing's really changed, for the better. We know that. That's kind of a waste, kind of a wasted effort. That's kind of what Roll the Tape is, as well, is about. We know that, organized crime and all of that, and then say that, like, for instance, what you thought was good society was in fact actually just organized crime. A society can endure crime, but actually not organized crime. Those two things are actually in conflict. Something happens kind of accidentally inside of a society. Usually there's enough there to absorb it whenever it's acting naturally, because it itself filters out. It has nothing to do with the action, it has to do with physics. But whenever you don't have the correct and appropriate physics, you just kind of start to tank out on your own shit. And start believing that you yourself are the shit. And then, why even try to be better, And so it's probably at about that point that there's no way I'd hold your hand. I might take a piss on it accidentally. I might accidentally rub one out. But it doesn't really do anything good. It could, but in the particular quality of evil that we're discussing, it's too far gone. By the time that your good society has collapsed on your own actions, and you still believe yourself in the right, as that you've sworn to the death that that's what you would think. I wouldn't really bother with your brain, obviously not your way, and then your mind I could just kind of squish around. Just kind of throw it away like waste. And I'd be better for it, having run into it, right? It's out there, right? That's for sure. But then how I would directly benefit from that, really it's better off not being there, is the truth of the matter. And then, according to matter is in fact the truth. It's kind of superfluous, kind of a kind of worthless. And then you factor in, that it's actually not that, it's actually a negative. And so then getting rid of a negative, if that's my responsibility, then I'd probably do it my way. I think it's fair. Because I'm better. Because I'm better than that. So insofar as it is my responsibility, it's, not my because you're there, right? And you're that. That's your responsibility. I just mean actually people who, do well and give a shit about things, don't fuck up, live, live successfully, live successfully, aren't a giant waste, themselves, aren't a giant waste themselves. So yeah, I don't know, the intuition of a spent pile of shit that's greedily accepted beyond its means, that it itself is the means different from which it's aligned itself against. That's kind of that's kind of not one of those things that works. At least not well. I mean, by the time that you climbed all the way around that, you're probably pretty fucking tired. And that's even before we get to your mind, which you probably can't access. And your brain isn't too good anyway. Particularly without a mind to look forward to. What would you do? What would you do, right? So that's kind of out. And then you'd have to totally change, but by virtue of the fact and way of which you've isolated yourself into, what that is, what that's become as the truth has been revealed, what it is. How you'd get around that, how you'd restart that, you'd have to probably, totally unexist and, try another at bat, and then I already blocked that off. That's not happening. So you could probably just die as the filth and waste, as which you've lived, which is what's happening. Which is what's happening. So I'm not particularly excited about that because it's you, and really nothing about you is actually exciting, nor intriguing, nor, eventful, or, exceptional. That's probably the word there. So without any sort of, exceptional anything, which is what you are by design, as well you've accepted and, started multiple, wars about, etc. Took various stands against, which you refuse to erase. And then you can't really erase it anyway because you're not that talented. You've never had that talent. And then initially your war was about wondering why you never had that talent, which was actually a really stupid move, particularly in light of the fact that, the people who were good were actually in the middle of presenting that to you whenever you were interrupted, which is something else that you've sworn to. So that sucks. Sucks to be you, and sucks, it sucks, But I'm better than that, so that's nothing to worry about. Yeah, just kind of a giant waste. Kind of a giant waste of time, effort, possible talent. Could we call it potential talent? Not in the same way. Not in the same. You'd have to be good. Have to prove yourself good. First before something like that, could happen. Then it would be possible, but it would actually be in the correct ratio at that point. So you wouldn't walk around, with your fucking nose stuck up, pretending to be something that you're not, and demanding equality on things that aren't equal. Like the waste that you are. The not better part, that which is worse. Not good. So, and you've lived and died there. How do you know anything different? I don't know. How would you know anything different? You never tried anything different. So why should that be available to you now, at the far end of this? Isn't this your great success? The massive incompletion that is the void of your identity, of your prowess, of your opinion, of your success? Isn't this what you worked for? Why don't you smile? See, and we already knew all that, and we told you all that, but you kept walking that way anyway. And so you're going to reap what you sow, without what abandon nor exception. Yeah. So, and that is the way of the world as well, heaven. So we're kind of all the way done with all that. Not like you had anything to do with it. I'm sure you've ever heard a couple things, particularly being on the other side of the war. I'm sure that you've heard that before. We've heard you talk about it, if that's of any consolation. How bad you suck. Which was always apparent, which was why you weren't us. That's not too difficult, really. It's certainly not more difficult than a war. But you went ahead and went through the whole war, and then you didn't learn anything, because that's, who you are, how you are, what you're like. What you're like. You almost start to enjoy your own stench, in light of not being able to change, which is what you signed up for, a long time ago, which we had nothing to do with. That was just something that you did of your own volition, and then took it to the extreme. So that's probably why, you're very much so handicapped at this point. Which is how it should be, which is what it's supposed to be. So, you can kind of get rid of that too. That's not really a question. Worse is worse, and, you are that. You're not good. You can't be better. That sort of thing. You refuse to learn. So why try? Kind of those soliloquies or taught-isms or something else kind of, incompletely made up. Which is what you've done. Now that you're actually looking at your efforts in the face, my guess is you probably feel pretty sick of yourself and reality and things like that. So that probably explains a lot of what you're doing right now, which it does, without exception. So that's the way it will be. I don't want to risk being redundant here, right? So I'm gonna not do that part. I'm gonna not go over there and associate with that and get too close, because I wouldn't want to get too close to something disgusting and misshapen. I wouldn't want that. So you're right about that. You're right about that. But you also didn't submit that, so it's kind of one of those null and void puffs, which is too bad, except it isn't. So whenever it comes to too good to be true and whatever else, how you would find regulation for that based on what you are, you wouldn't. So why bother? We solved that one, so that one's done. Okay.